Hello everyone, Jarath here. Today I'm going to show you my base and some of the problems I've been having when trying to chop and change some of the materials required for boosting reputation for the corporations. So if you need to chop and change, if you haven't put your buildings or laid out your buildings with some level of predictability of change, it's going to be an absolute mess when it comes to moving all of the rails around your base. And right now I'm at the stage where I'm chopping and changing a fair bit, and I need to find an easier way or a better way to actually move the rails and clean up the rails a bit more, because as you can see it looks like an absolute mess with the rails coming in for bringing in helium, and then this one here is bringing in calcium, and just the layout. Like I've got fabricators everywhere, furnaces everywhere, storage depots everywhere, but the railing's even worse. So I need to be able to try and find a proper and predictable line so you can easily identify which part of the process the mining and refining and fabricating is going. You can easily identify it, and planning is probably more important with these base building exercises. So as we get closer, you can see like some things aren't set up because it's just a nightmare trying to link up the railing. So you have to delete some of the buildings or deconstruct them, and then find better positions for them. Like if you look at these two furnaces here, they're probably a little bit too close together in my opinion. So having at least one or two spaces in between some of these bigger buildings that that require an input and an output for your railings, give them a bit of space so you can put like a rail support in or a rail network. That will be probably a pro tip. So from here, this supply depot or storage depot requires putting in and feeding tubes into a furnace, but I'll show you in a second how difficult it is, even though the fabricator's right here that produces them. Linking up these railings, you're going to have to go under and over some of them, or change them into like an intersection railing. So if you raise it and lower it, I'm having difficulties trying to get around it. So get spacing in between your buildings, and plan them out to start off with, because you'll be needing these storage depots in between some of these processes sometimes, because you're going to want them to branch off again so you can make something else. Because every level with corporation reputation, it can sometimes vastly change the type of materials that they ask for. So even though we put some supports in to try and move the railing around and wrap around back into this supply depot, it's kind of not working. So my base requires a big cleanup, or even start from scratch. Start from scratch again, which does sound over the top, but if you've got some upgrades along the way, like upgrading your rails themselves so that you can increase the speed in which you deliver the goods to and from fabricators and furnaces to orbital launches or even storage depots. If at any stage you find any of these tips in this video helpful, please don't forget to try and support the channel, just by simply doing a like and subscribe, or even share with a friend that wants to sort of play this game. Like right here, I've got two furnaces too close together, and the input for a furnace requires 3 rails to go into it. So even having an orbital launcher there, I just deconstructed. There was no way of trying to get railing to that orbital launcher. So let's try and put one somewhere else. Give it a bit of room. So I think one other pro tip is probably line up your fabricators and furnaces in a line, and have some cross sections for your railings so they can go in different directions, and have maybe a storage depot in between each furnace or fabricator, because you might want to branch them off at a later date. And of course you'll be having orbital launches that will just become redundant in one position very easily and quickly, especially when you level up your corporation reputation. And then the materials required for them, for the level ups, change. But that's my main things. Give each building a bit of a space and line them up accordingly. Because right now in this base, the Wolfram ore extractor and fabricators, everything to do with Wolfram is at the back of the base, and I've had to wrap it right around the back of the base core, the habitat, solar arrays, everything. And one particular thing that will identify if your base is getting too messy or unorganized is probably the need to raise or lower the railings to go underneath or over top of each other. The moment you're starting to do that, you probably need to rethink how you're laying out your base. Another pro tip is find a helium node early on in the game, so you can put down extractors for them. I think it takes level 6 or 7 to gain access to those helium extractors. They cost about 250 material points to actually build them, and you need to try and get them to your base and store a lot of helium, and you'll see why, because for a lot of the research points require helium later on, and also the upgrading your base core requires thousands of units just to upgrade it by one. From level 1 to level 2, I think it's somewhat over 7,000. So stockpile that helium, and you're going to need it a lot more for complex items later on. So it's taken me a while just to try and get an orbital launcher in here, just due to obstructions with other railings. So I kind of cracked the shits and just raised the railing supports all the way off the ground, just so I can run them straight over the railings that are already obstructing. So if you happen to do this, then rethink your base again. So, and the orbital launcher is only a few meters away, so, and that was only to just deliver some glass from a furnace to a storage depot to an orbital launcher. And when putting these buildings in, don't forget to actually choose what you want to send into orbit or to construct, or what to store even. Otherwise it will just be sitting there and not sending the material in there, even though it's got power. So if you are like me, where you have to run a lot of helium and calcium back to your original base, build a few storage depots, especially helium, like I said before, because you're going to be using a lot of it in just upgrading and recipes. So right now I'm going to head back to base core and the habitat, just to sort of upgrade or work towards upgrading the next level. So here, 7,200 helium 3 just to go from level 1 to level 2 for your base core. Just in time for when bugs attack. Alright, that's all from me for now. Hope to see you guys in another video. Goodbye.